Welcome to another episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond. My name is Nirav Shah. I'm CEO of AdSeries ERP. We're a full-service ERP implementation company providing ERP cloud solutions. With me today is my co-host Peter Nicholson. Give it up for Peter. Hey Peter, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Finally got over yet another cold, so I'm already two colds into the year, so not a great track record to start with. But I'm here. I'm feeling well now.
You're here and you're vertical still, so that's great.
Yeah, vertical and sober.
Fantastic.
So
And sober. There you go. Exactly. That's great. This is our sixth episode here,
yeah,
right?
it is. Oh
Wow.
yes.
Well, great to see you again. I'm super excited for the topic that we have. Today, we're discussing the top 5 reasons to use a BI tool. And for those of you that don't know what a BI stands for, it means business intelligence, right? Um, a lot of companies use business intelligence tools, whether your company uses it or not. It's really emerging technology. It's become very popular in recent years, and for good reason. Data continues to play an essential role in business decision making, right? So these tools are there to unlock valuable insights that drive growth and competitiveness for your business. So it doesn't matter what size you are, really, whether you're small or you're a large enterprise, right? This tool can help you analyze data from multiple systems, right? A lot of think of D to C type of companies, direct to consumer, where they have retail e-commerce sites, web stores that integrate to their ERP, and then they also have like POS systems and merchants. Um, and a host of other solutions. The BI tools take data from all these separate databases and bring it into a centralized place for you, right? And this helps you identify trends and make sense of your patterns that are happening in your business, make informed decisions to further grow your business ultimately. I feel like this is such a necessary tool for any business that is looking to grow, that wants to understand how their business has changed from year over year, right? And what the next phase for any business looks like. I think BI tools is super important to implement. So today we're going to talk about implementing a BI tool, kind of the pros of it, the 5 reasons you want to, and I'm going to add in there specific cons for some of the reasons why we have to implement a BI tool. Just to kind of give you another side of it, right? Something to also consider. So there's a lot of benefits with doing this, but there's also some reasons why you may, think again. Um, uh, it's always good to kind of have that in the back of your pocket to maybe make further preparations on how you don't fall into that trap in that specific area that we talk about. So, with that being said, BI I know is very near and dear to your heart, Peter, and you work with BI tools daily in your current role, and you're kind of like a data geek. So you could definitely provide a lot of analysis to our viewers. The first one that I have on my list today is make smarter decisions using Power BI or another BI tool. So help expand that for us, Peter.
Yeah, I guess really for me, businesses now are generating so much data compared to 10, 15 years ago. Like as you said, there's so many different entry points of data, both internally and externally. So I think with the sheer volume of data, it's become too cumbersome for most businesses to do anything with. And then you're struggling to actually make good decisions. We know that data led decisions are always going to be the correct ones, or the ones that are going to give you the most balanced view of your business outside of the old way of doing things or legacy way of doing things or what your gut tells you. These things, I'm not saying are to be dismissed, but the value you can get from being able to understand your data and being able to then make decisions based on that is really powerful tool. And I think with BI tools, you can really start to find these insights in your data. When you have multiple sources of data, being able to then put them together, and then analyze them. More often, these BI tools are in a user-friendly format that I know we're going to touch upon. But then you'll be able to identify trends, patterns, opportunities that you might otherwise miss. So for me, I think point number one is probably the biggest one, which is better decision making purely from that. You can't always rely purely on your ERP system's standard reports. You need to go further. And I think a BI tool is the way that you do that.
Yeah,
I know
I agree.
I don't know about you, but I've seen some of these standard reports that you see out the box. And I've never seen one I've gone, whoa, that's amazing. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Like, it just doesn't happen, does it? Um,
No,
it's
does
just, it
not
gives you a
happen.
flavor of like, this is what BI can do for you. But if
Yeah,
that's what you're showing me, it's not going to be good enough. And that's where
no,
BI comes in.
yeah, and if I could add just a little bit to that, ERP systems, and you talk about business systems and management systems, they're a lot more or less, if it's not specific for your industry, they're generic out of the box, right? You're molding it to be part of your business or your industry essentially when you implement. So a lot of those reports don't work for your business out of the box. I mean, outside of maybe inventory valuation, open AR, open AP, right? Or a trial balance, you're not going to get much value out of those out of the box reports for you. When you really want to look at, data where a specific user is putting in an order for a specific type, and you want to see what events are happening with that type of order or with a specific item, and over a range of time or something like that. Now you're looking at a report that definitely doesn't exist, highly likely not existing in your current management system or ERP system. Or BI, you could take that data, make it real time, start predicting, when that item comes in, or when you use that customer again. And the more real time the data is, I mean, businesses are moving fast nowadays, and those users of managements, the managers, the executives, even now maybe the key user at the lowest level is looking at these reports, and it's helping them manage and monitor, right, their efficiency in terms of what they're doing, and predicting, hey, I have a spike in my workload, let my boss know, or let me let somebody know what's going on. So now that collaboration, because you have that future forward kind of looking, at information and predicting, what's going to be happening, you could be more reactive now, essentially proactive in solving those business challenges that are coming up, before that actually happens potentially.
Yeah, and it's that predictive nature, isn't it? It also shows whether or not your strategies, whether it's a sales strategy, is the right thing, because your data might show you something else that you might not have seen before. And this is the power of a BI tool, the ability to take different data sets and put them together, which you can't necessarily easily do from your ERP. You might want to put sales data to um, marketing data if a campaign has been run. I know we talked about this before, like siloed data. So it's a data set that is and of itself isolated from other data sets. So siloed data is a problem when you want to then be able to have a 360 view of the company. You can't necessarily do that in static siloed reporting. Whereas a BI tool, you'll be able to put those together, um, analyze whether these marketing campaigns are working, and of course, on top of that, and this is way beyond today's episode, but machine learning will then give you predictive analytics of
Yeah,
what the future holds, or could hold if you weren't
yeah.
to change. Maybe the BI report has shown potential cost reductions, or wasted expenses,
Hmm.
that if you don't do something with it, you're going to be in for a shock, 6-12 months down the line, whatever it happens to be. So it's that predictive analytics that you get as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like just hook up the Chat GPT to it, and then start spitting out what's really going on with your business.
Yeah, then we're all out of jobs. Perfect.
Well,
No, but you are right.
you know,
I think that's the
it's
thing, especially with companies that are generating so much data these days. Like I've heard an expression before of hot data and cold data. So hot
mhm.
data is something where you could be doing multiple transactions per second. If you're running an app and you want to look through click-through rates and it goes viral or something, like you're stuffed if you haven't got a Power BI. Power BI. There's other ones on the market.
Yeah,
If you haven't got a BI tool that can
BI,
handle that,
yeah, yeah,
hot
yeah.
data is moving quick and there's a lot of it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you move a lot of data and you have a BI tool in place, and now you could be proactive, you can immediately change your strategy or tactic, right? If something's not working, without having to spend so much money in something that's not working, right? It
Yeah.
can be a big time cost saver in the long run. Where if take the time to set it up properly, it can. Um, Now, cue Hans Zimmer and the Batman or Bond comes in, Bane comes in and is about to, create a very, very dark scene here in Batman Returns. But, one thing about Power BI, we talked about a lot of benefits here, but one of the cons out is information overload or information paralysis. Now you have this ability to take out so much data, right? And let's say you weren't doing this before. You could take your data and start zipping through and creating all these reports, but how quickly can you actually take action on it, right? How quickly can you make positive adjustments in your process, right? Yeah, you have all this data. What's it doing? Maybe it's overload data where it's it's more hindering the business
Yeah.
because you find so many gaps or ways to change that it becomes overwhelming. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you have to be very mindful of what you want the BI tool to do. So that might be something as simple as tracking a KPI, or it might be identifying cost reductions in the business, or whatever it happens to be. I think you have to have a clear goal in mind of what you're trying to achieve before you even go down the rabbit hole of having a BI tool, because you can get really stuck in it with the amount
Mhm.
of data and how easy it is these days to swing data around. You can become stuck, not really know what to do. And I've
Right.
been there before. I've made reports that I think are incredible, and spent hours on them, and they're useless to everyone else apart from me. I've just enjoyed putting it together because there's not actually been any genuine requirement, or goal in mind. It was just me liking data. So I think you really got to be careful with that. And I think you'd need to make sure that you've got the why in place. Like, what are you actually trying to achieve with this?
Exactly. I think that was you hit the nail right on the head. You need to have a plan of what you're looking to get out of it, right? And what area of the business do you want to concentrate on? Sometimes you can't. Maybe it doesn't make sense to put together 5 reports for each department. Maybe right now phase one looks like we want to put together good analytical reports for manufacturing. See what we're doing in our production side, right? Where are we? What type of opportunities are we missing? Let's create a report for that. And now from there, let's create a specific report to handle, the low hanging fruit, right? Because we feel that this could be a problem. Then you create the second report. Now let's take some decisions off of it. Let's make some actual impactful changes, right? To run a report just to run a report, I feel like there's so many reports that people run sometimes just to run it without actually having any type of positive like feedback or loop or updated workflow around it. They're just running it just to run it. And
Yeah, there's a thing called DMM, which is data management maturity, and there's three levels that a business would fall into, and dependent on what level you're at, what level maturity you're at, will govern how you should approach this. So it's not maturity in terms of how much historical data you have. It's actually where you are in the data life cycle. So, data management maturity level 1 is starting with the data, and that's what we're talking about here. You've got to make sure that you identify what you're trying to achieve. You've got to have buy-in from management. You've got to have that solid data foundation, and from there you should be able to kind of articulate to stakeholders what this BI tool is going to achieve, um, and what it's, how it's going to add value to the company. So
Yeah.
there's a few don'ts with that, and one is, don't kind of box yourself in. You have to get out there and talk to people, talk to other departments, understand what they want, and it's really difficult. Try and stay to off the shelf products, turnkey solutions. Like, don't go down custom routes or bespoke solutions straight away.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I mean, they should really only be created where it creates a competitive advantage for a business.
Hmm.
So as clean and as vanilla and as off the shelf as you can, with good data, is level 1 of data maturity
Hmm.
for me.
Hmm.
That's where you start,
Yeah.
because
That's where you start.
otherwise you'll end up with, you'll be drowning in all these different data tables and different databases and someone else's CSV file that they've emailed you. It'd just be a nightmare. It'd be
Oh,
unwieldy to try and control.
yeah. Absolutely. I've for some of our customers, I look at their BI tools and I look at some of the reports that they have. Probably sometimes they could be up to 50% they don't even use these reports they created, and this isn't adding value, right? And maybe that's one of the positives. Like, let's create the report, let's see if it's something that we're going to use, and make positive changes. And if it's not, you know, no harm, no foul. You just created a report that's essentially designed for you to create reports for, and if you don't use it, you don't use it. Just go on to the next one, or perfect the report that you currently have, and maybe add a couple more elements to it so you get it to a usable standpoint. So, yeah, I think these are all great points in terms of make smarter business decisions using a BI tool. I think in this one for sure, the benefit outweighs the con here, no doubt. I think it just makes good business sense in here for sure. Um, the second advantage I have here is these tools are easier than ever now to implement, and a lot of different reasons why. So, Peter, why don't you help explain that to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So with these, I think now BI tools are so user friendly that anyone can have the ability to create some kind of dashboard, maybe with a couple of hours of some YouTube videos, but you can get there pretty quickly. So these are what I would call low code or even no code frameworks. So you don't need to have any experience of C Sharp or Java or Python or R or any kind of language to be able to start putting together some dashboards on your data. And I heard someone recently say that it's putting a user interface directly on top of your raw data, which before you just couldn't do.
Okay, to do.
So, I mean, you can to a certain degree in Excel, but you need quite good Excel skills to be able to do that. So, I think the fact that now you can do this with no code, drag and drop in most places, where you just click the little icon of a bar chart or I would say a pie chart, but there's
Mhm.
never a good time to use a pie chart, um, or a line graph or whatever it happens to be. Like,
Right.
you just drag and drop the data field straight on top of that, and away you
Right.
go.
Hmm.
So I think that they are easier than ever to use, simply because you can get going very quickly.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. I think you know um, these reporting tools have come a long way. I remember before Cognos. I mean, you needed to learn a whole separate language almost to write those type of reports, right? And then Crystal was a popular one, which was user driven. You still needed some level of IT technical skills essentially to create that, and it just kind of evolved to some of the tools now, like you mentioned, low code, no code. Maybe go through a quick couple-hour training class, and you're off and running. Some out-of-the-box reports are available based on the solution you're integrating, ERPs or whatnot. But it makes this reach to expand down to the user level. You could have departments managing their own reports and without having an IT person involved, and cuts out a lot of that red tape, essentially to um, get what the users are asking for real quickly, any type of reports that they need. So you're absolutely right. It is a step in the right direction. I think it's going to get easier, you know
Mm,
yeah, even easier, the next phase and the next phase. But I
mm.
think we're at a point now where the PI tools are easily accessible, and any user almost, could almost pick up essentially, how to create simple reports without having to worry about,
Yeah,
specific, joins and blah blah blah, all these other things. These web services, web pages are already published, that you could go ahead and pick up the data and quickly just pretty much drag the field and drop the field wherever you want, right into the report, right, if it's simple enough. So
yeah.
agreed.
I think, and I think this is a good time to mention that I've often heard people say, "Well, why not just use Excel?"
Mm.
Because that has pie charts. I don't know why I
Hmm.
keep thinking of pie charts. I've got something against it. It just keeps coming to me. But that's got the ability to do pivot
Hmm.
charts, not just pivot tables, but actually dynamic charts based on pivoted data. So, like, why not just use Excel? And for me,
Hmm.
it's just simply the wrong tool. Like, dashboards are not reports.
Right.
So I'd say dashboards are really designed to give insight of how a business is performing against its KPIs.
Hmm.
So with that in mind, the data needs to be constantly updated with new data, like sales lines or invoice lines or whatever it happens to be. And that's just not something that Excel can natively do.
Hmm.
So it can with some plugins, and you can uh, maybe through SharePoint point Power Query to a CSV file, but you're getting convoluted way of doing things. It's
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
built for it. It was built for
Yeah.
spreadsheets. Like
Yeah.
years ago, it might have been right, but
Hmm.
these days, with tools out there, BI tools that are specifically tailored for um, ever growing data, uh, the requirement for real time insights, Excel
Hmm.
just can't handle it.
No,
And I think
can't.
really the skill just isn't as valuable anymore. You
Right.
think of how many CVs you see people put proficient in Microsoft Office products.
That
Like,
was hot stuff. I used to put it on all of mine.
but then again, you see some candidates that put proficient down. Like, what does that mean? Like, proficient against versus my cat, um, or proficient against, an Excel wizard. Like, what
Yeah,
does
true.
proficiency mean? Because you can get
Right.
someone that can do some simple conditional formatting, and they
Right.
think they're an Excel god.
Yeah. I can do a VLOOKUP. You, you know, I mean, I'm pretty dangerous. I'm very dangerous,
Yeah, that is
Peter.
dangerous. Yeah, little knowledge and all that. But yeah, so it's just the skill isn't as valuable anymore. You need to start
Yeah.
getting people into BI. And I think the other thing,
Absolutely.
going back to the volume of data, it's just cumbersome to do in Excel.
Hmm.
Often the data has to reside in the same file on a separate worksheet, and that's fine if you're talking a few hundred rows or 10,000, 20,000 rows. But if your business is generating millions of rows, Excel's just going to crunch. It's going to crash.
Yeah.
Even if you have the 64-bit version where you can get into
Right.
millions of rows,
Right.
it's
Right.
just going to be so cumbersome.
So
And
cumbersome.
yes,
Yeah.
you can use Power Query and point it to multiple Excel files, but it's just a convoluted way of doing it.
Yeah.
So, and then it makes it difficult to share. Like we've
Oh
had it,
yeah.
haven't we? We've done some
We have it.
reporting together,
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
had the issue of emailing it out to stakeholders. Just couldn't
Yeah.
do it. The file size was far too
Couldn't
big.
do it. Yeah. 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 Outlook would just, would kick it out, saying
Mm,
it's an error. Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing I was just thinking about, Peter, was, what I really like about the BI side is when you see the visual graph, pie chart or linear chart or whatever type of chart we create, being able to drill into the raw data right
Yeah.
through there. I mean, that's just so phenomenal, and that's without even doing special customization or special logic or anything. That's just out of the box.
Mm, I really like that. I've coined the term dynamic granularity,
Ooh, I like it.
and
I like
I'm going to trademark that as long as someone else doesn't. But for me, it's again going back to the Excel side. You kind of set on the granularity of the data in the background, and if that needs to change, if you're too upper level and you need more granular data, you have to go back to your data source and do some export again, and then start the whole process over again.
it.
Whereas a BI tool can handle that natively. You'll be able to drill
Hmm.
down to the granularity you need to get to.
Hmm.
So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I love that. Now cue the ominous mood here. Da, 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 da. A con for this, though, Peter, that I came up with is running the risk of inexperience. Users creating reports that will give
Mm,
you bad data.
yeah.
Where if they don't properly put together a report without knowing, maybe what they're after, and they put together a report just to put together a report, now you get a report that is potentially relaying to you bad information,
Hmm.
right? Right? Maybe they put
Yeah.
put in, something where they're looking at costing, for example, and instead of getting weighted average, they're getting just an average, right? Because they put the wrong date filters or something like that in the report, right? Now that report, it could actually skew your analysis and potentially
Mm.
make you make bad business decisions, and implement bad processes. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, it's a blessing and a curse. When data was with, the experts in their office, and the only people that knew how to put data together, that was a bad thing because that was a bottleneck in the company and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, they were the experts and they knew what they were doing, um, and they knew good data practices. So now you've just opened the floodgates. You let everyone at it. Okay, right, go. You can make your own reports. It doesn't really mean that they know how to do it in terms of good data practices. And as you
Hmm.
said, all it takes is doing, I don't know, a mean average, and you've got two or three massive outliers that's skewing your average, that someone that has more experience with handling data would spot. And maybe the right average to use was median average, um, or maybe even as you said, summing the data incorrectly on the wrong type of date. Maybe they're looking at sales where they're looking at date order raised versus date order shipped. They're using the wrong date in the wrong date table. Like,
Hmm.
all of this is now potential. Now you've opened it up to everyone. So as much as it is, it's easier than ever to use, and everyone can get a um, free stab at the data of making your own report. You've got to be careful. You have
Yeah.
got to be careful because data more often than not is absolute truth, but it's only truthful if the data is accurate, and has gone through a robust checking process.
Agreed. Agreed. You know what they say, right? In carpentry, especially, um, is to measure twice, cut once, and it's really important to ensure that there is a rollout strategy, right? There's an approval process that the report goes through before it gets implemented. So you get the right people to look at the reports, make sure it's designed correctly before it's actually deployed. So again, you said it perfectly. Is that you need to kind of um, be very very careful
Mm,
that it's created for the correct intent and set up for that intent essentially that you're looking for. So
yeah.
uh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's the inaccuracy of data and the bad presentation of data as well.
Mm,
So I've just finished reading a book by, I think it was a guy called Stephen Few,
hmm
a book called Show Me the Numbers. And it's
hmm
all about good data visualization and how you clearly articulate whatever you're trying to articulate in a graph, a chart, or a table, whatever it happens to be. And there was a certain point in one of the chapters that specifically said about this. Like, everyone now can create a graph in Excel or an easy no code BI tool,
hmm
but often they're not done with any good presentation techniques. Like, even simple things like it was saying about, I give you an example, cultural differences. So us over here in the Western world, we know that green numbers are good and red numbers are bad, or green
Yeah,
is positive and red is negative.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
you go over to East Asia, it's the other way around. Red are good numbers and green are bad. So if you look at their stock markets, for example, and everything's red, everyone's high fiving and cheering because red is a positive number, is good. Red means
Yeah,
good.
that's
So it's
true.
the opposite.
Yeah,
It's
right,
even things
right.
like cultural differences, maybe even color blindness for
Mm-hmm.
another one,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe someone that has tried to put a time series in a bar chart instead of a line chart, or someone's
Mm-hmm.
done a double y-axis and they're not aligned. You know, there's all these kind of things that now you could introduce into a company because
Mm-hmm.
you've given everyone the opportunity to start making these charts. So
Yeah.
you've got to be careful with that.
You got to be careful. Absolutely. Maybe this should, there should be a BI reporting governance, right, internally. When looking to bring on a BI tool, right? What are the rules
Mm,
that the users need to follow,
yeah,
and what's the legend and what's the keys that we need to use. So
yeah. I would
that's
love
some
to
interesting
see
work.
this
Hmm
somehow introduced even into schools or high
hmm
schools or whatever, because we do it with
Yeah.
language,
hmm
written, spoken. We talk about grammar, spelling. We do it with numbers through math. Um, we don't do it with data at the moment,
Right.
or at least data
No.
visualizations, and that's a
hmm
shame
Right.
because no one really gets trained on making a good Power BI report, or
hmm
no one gets trained on even making a good PowerPoint presentation. You're just left to it,
Yep.
which is dangerous when the tools themselves are so easy for you to do it. Doesn't mean you're any good. Doesn't mean
Right.
you the grammar of your data is any good. Like, the
Right.
words are right, but they're all in the wrong order, and I don't really get what you're trying to tell me. That's what happens
Exactly.
with data.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It could get more confusing than actually, answering your question.